few moments and look at the United States debt clock. And over here on the right-hand side, we can see this is the United States federal tax revenue. And what that is showing is obviously how much money they are collecting in terms of taxes. And then it breaks it down, how much taxes they're collecting per citizen, total state tax revenue, and these are local tax revenues. And then over here it shows the breakdown of where that tax is coming from. And so personal income tax is the largest component of tax revenue, so that's where they get most of their money from. So this is income tax from people who are working. Here's the payroll tax revenue. That's your Social Security and Medicare. Under here we have our corporate tax revenue, and then the taxes that are collected through tariffs, which are the imports. Down here it shows state debt, how much debt per citizen each person owes the state. This is the local debt, and then how much debt that each citizen owes. Here's our gross domestic product. So this is that consumer spending, business investment, government spending. We're calculating how productive we are. Here's total federal, state, and local spending. Here is our total debt to GDP ratio, which is the number that most economists want to look at, and that is a lot. And then spending to GDP ratio 45.97. Over on this side, on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, this is the tax revenue, the revenues coming in and where it's coming from. Over here on the left-hand side are the debts. So first we have the national debt, and then down here we have the federal deficit. And so what happens to figure out the budget deficit, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. So this is how much tax revenue that we have coming in over here. This is how much spending we have going out. And so the deficit is the difference between what we have coming in and what we have going out. So a deficit, we're calculating for the year. This national debt clock up here, what that is looking at is each year that we run a deficit, we just keep piling that and adding each year on top of year on top of year. So this is how much less we are bringing in than what we're spending just for this year. This right here is adding up all of the debt that we owe in total. So our deficit we are running this year so far is $3 trillion, but our total national debt that we have accumulated over years is $28 trillion. And so if you look at these numbers, they're flying off the screen here. So if you look at that, we have, 330 million people roughly, debt per citizen. So if we took the population and divided that national debt by the population, each person owes $84,000. But if you took this national debt and divided it by the number of people who are actually paying taxes, each taxpayer owes $225,000 in order to get that paid off. This U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio, once again, looking at it historically, the 1960s, the 1980s, the 2000s, and from graphs that I've looked at the last time that we were above 100% of GDP, our debt ratio was World War II. We have some budget items down here. You can see what we are doing in Medicare spending, Social Security spending, defense. These two are your mandatory spending accounts. Once you have mandatory spending taken care of, mandatory means you have to spend that, then whatever's left over you can divide up amongst all the other different expenditures, defense spending being that the largest expenditure that we have that is discretionary spending. Here is interest on the debt. So look at how much interest we are paying on just debt. So I'll leave that alone. There's just some other interesting things that you can look at here. Population. Here's our official unemployment number right now, and then our actual unemployment, because this official number doesn't count people who are no longer in the workforce, which means they've quit looking because they're frustrated, can't find a job. So all kinds of other interesting numbers that you can look from this. But we definitely wanted to take a look at what we have coming in versus what we have going out. And so there is a deficit because we don't have as much coming in tax revenue as we do going out and spending. But the debt itself is actually the accumulation of all the deficits that we've been running year after year after year.